Okay. So troubleshooting relationships. I think this is a very important topic. I think it's self-understood why it's an important topic, because we all encounter many relationships in our lives. Obviously, the more important ones are the personal relationships, not just the professional relationships, but the people that you want to share your life with. Additionally, I think there's also the other kinds of relationships that we don't really focus on enough, and that's like the idea of relationship with oneself and relationship with God. I have particular affinity to this idea because my grandfather, at the age of 16, wrote a book, just talking about these three different relationships that someone encounters in their life, between man and oneself, man and his fellow, and man and God, which is just an idea of these are the three kinds of relationships that people encounter. And this is kind of what we have in life, What do you really have in life? All you have is you have your family and you have yourself and you have the Almighty. That's what you have. That's what those are things that you come into life with and you end life with. That's what these relationships accompany you throughout your entire existence. And in every single relationship, there's always ups and downs, and in almost every single relationship, there's crises. And I wanted to think maybe we could do this as a collaborative effort. I wanted to think of just the basic fundamental aspects of what to do or how to repair relationship breakdowns, and to prevent, God forbid, when sometimes there's relationships that are really good, and they're, let's say, two people and they're meant for each other and they're compatible and everything really is fine. But for whatever reason, it goes south, and many times, or all too often, it goes south and it never recovers. And I think it's important to, some relationships are never, were never meant to be. Some relationships just, there's incompatibility. There's just, these things were destined to fail. Those things happen. And it's a tragedy, because it causes a lot of pain and anguish when people have to go through these kinds of periods in their life. And it's unfortunate. But it's not always like that. When we talk about divorce in America, what it says, 50, 60%, it's an enormous amount of people that get married get divorced. Not all of them is a result of incompatibility. Not all of them is a result of some major event. It's or some major catastrophe, something unique that happened to these two people. It's just there's a breakdown, and it just heads south, and it just never recovers. And I think it's very important for us, if we want to have happy, fulfilling lives and sharing lives with other people. And I think that maybe the principles could also be applied to the other relationships that we encounter. I think it's important to know what to do in the face of a relationship crisis. And what I'm going to share with you tonight is what I think. It's not based on any Torah source or based on some sort of tradition that I got from my parents or my teachers, or this is just what I thought. That's why it's fair game if you want to disagree, or if you want to add in your 2 cents or your 10 cents or your dollar. We all welcome that, because this is just what I think, and I think it's too important of a topic to be left to the select few. You agree? Okay. So the first thing that I thought of is, obviously we're trying to get to root causes. Sometimes relationships, they're fighting over the television remote, or they're fighting over finances, or these are fights that are manifestations of root problems. And it's always important to not get tied up with the symptoms and look at the cause, look at the disease. So when we see a fight, there's always the superficial. They did this or they did that. They didn't have the garbage. They didn't, they rolled up the toothpaste from the top to the bottom. Right? Those are silly things. And what we always want to do is try to get to the core reason. Right? Try to hit the mothership. You don't want to just kill cockroaches. You want to destroy the nest. Right? So you always want to go to the roots. So is there a way that we could say, is there a way to generalize to say what are the root causes for relationship breakdowns? And I believe there is. And I believe that relationship crises are a result of breakdown in character, not circumstance. Character, not circumstance. And there may be exceptions, but I don't think there are. I think that every time there is a conflict, there's a fight, there's a disagreement, there's a breakdown. When there's a crisis mode in a relationship, it's always at the core. It's always about character and character flaws on one or both sides of the parties, and not because of circumstance. Tragedy can happen, right? There could be financial, health-related tragedies. There could be professional-related tragedies. There could be any number of things that happen. You lose your job, or you get into an accident, or you have some sort of health problem, God forbid. And these are things which could bring about a conflict. But at the root, I think we could always demonstrate that is actually not the cause of the conflict, but this new scenario, this new situation might have brought up something within the two parties, a character flaw that only surfaced because of a certain circumstance. In a way that the circumstance could be like the arena for exposure of character flaws. But it's not the cause of conflict. And I think if this principle is true, and I believe it is, but like I said, this is just what I think. If this principle is true, then it's much easier to diagnose a problem. If every time there's a fight, it's a result of a certain character problem, not a situational problem, then it's much easier to diagnose the problem. And in my opinion, when I thought of this, I think it's kind of groundbreaking. At the beginning of our lives, we never know what kind of situations you get involved in. So many things change, and there's families, and there's communities, and you have kids, and there's issues with kids, and all those things that people never dream of when they start a relationship. And these things come, and they bring with them so many challenges. And and like I said, these are arenas for exposure of character flaws. And when there's a fight, or God forbid, a crisis in a relationship, in my opinion, we could always point to someone's anger, someone's impatience, someone's lack of caring, lack of empathy, someone's stubbornness as a cause for the reason why there was this disagreement. And the problem with having a disagreement, and the problem with having a some sort of hiccup in a relationship, is that typically the way relationships work is there's a lot of momentum involved. It means when things are going good, they're awesome, and they feed off each other, and there's always a trajectory. It's typically when it's heading one direction, people are more willing to forego and overlook, and things are smoothed out much easier. But once the God forbid if the trajectory were to be heading south, and the momentum is always south, and then people bring up all these other things which are unrelated to just things get compounded. So it's so important to not have that one thing, that one trigger that ignites or that reverses direction in the momentum of a relationship. This is why it's so important, because the second it goes down, and if it's not stopped and it's not rectified, it's not smoothed over, it could just go downhill. And once it goes downhill, it compounds. It's like it's faster and faster. So this is the first point that I think is true. I really want to hear feedback.
I have a question.
Yes.
You're saying when it's going up and it's good, it's like you're feeding off each other and good things happening.
Well, that's the idea of momentum. I think everyone who's ever been involved in a relationship recognizes momentum.
You say one thing happens and it just goes downhill.
No, okay. My point is that there's always the shift, the shift in the trend, the shift in the trends. Means my point is that we want to always be on the upward swing. That's my point. Yeah, so I agree. It wasn't scientific the way I presented it. But I think that the critical idea, the first idea that I wanted to share, I wanted to throw out the table is the idea of the root causes of conflicts are always in the realm of character flaws. What does everyone say?
Well, we all have character flaws. We have to be so perfect.
Who said we have to be perfect? That's why we all. That's why we all have. That's the whole point. By the fact that we're human, and that. Okay, what you're saying is an amazing thing. So we all have flaws, and therefore we're all prone to conflict. Shocking. Humans are prone to conflict. But the point is now that we know, I know that I'm not perfect, and I'm sure everyone who knows that about themselves, right? Because that's the human condition. It's that of imperfection. Huh?
Awesome.
Oh, okay. Well, there's always exceptions, right? But the second you know that there's a character flaw involved, you diagnose the problem. You're halfway home. Well, once you know, okay, I was stubborn, or I was being impatient, or I was being lazy, or right, you're halfway home. You're more than halfway home, right? Once you know the core root of the issue, and like you said, obviously, because humans are prone to have character flaws, and what in Judaism we say is that that's the reason why we're here. We're here because we are flawed, and our job is to try to improve. That's the whole idea of Tikkun Olam. It's the world is not a perfect place, and our job, the Jewish people's mission, collectively, is to bring the world to perfection. But each one of us as an individual, as a member of a family and a community, is to perfect ourselves and our families and our communities.
So why are people so opposed to change? Because the people that are stubborn usually stay stubborn their entire life.
Okay, but those people...
You're saying we need to improve on ourselves, but people don't want to improve.
Well, that's the whole point. The whole point is that there's a struggle. That's the idea of bechira, of choice, is that some people choose to change and some people choose to retain the inborn characteristics that they were born with.
There's a problem right there.
So there you go. And those people will suffer. You know what? Those people that are resistant to change and not willing, they're inflexible, and they're not willing to examine their own character and put a critical lens on their own activity and their own actions.
Put their critical lens on the other person.
Okay, that's the second point I wanted to talk about. So, like you said, Brahman, everyone is imperfect, and therefore those imperfections will be magnified or will come to the surface in a relationship, and
in moments of conflict.
No, not moments of conflict. It's the opposite. The moments of conflict are a result.
Right.
And every time that there's a conflict, it's always a result of one or both of the parties' character flaws. Now, point number 2, which I think is a general rule. I can't believe everyone agrees with me. I've said this before. I'm never sure if I'm just saying things that are just so easily acceptable, or if people are just like, the rabbi said whatever he says. What do you say, Trevor?
I actually agree with you.
Oh, wow. There we go.
You're on good grounds. I want to hear the next point so that I can disagree.
Okay, fine. And the next point is that you can only change yourself. The next point is that you can only change yourself. I've spoken. I can't tell you how many times this happened when I've spoken about character and character perfection and specific characteristics. I've spoken about humility and arrogance and appreciation and all of these characteristics. And invariably, I get the question: okay, how do I help someone else? Someone else you're describing like my dad or my spouse or my kids or my coworkers, and because the Torah gives us the key points to okay, what are the characteristics? What are the things? What are the criteria? Does someone be arrogant? They do this, they do that. This is how they react, right? We have a clear outline of how these people act, and we say, oh, I know someone who's exactly like that. How do I help them? The point is that. Well, there's an ironic what's the word I want to say? Discrepancy here. There's an ironic discrepancy is that people only see the flaws in others. People only see the flaws in others. It's very hard for people to see their own flaws.
Oh, I know that. Sorry. I can't finish on I'm sorry.
No big deal.
But now that I'm to the other side, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, you got the air conditioning spot.
Sorry, Gary, no offense.
I forgot to shout at it. So
Yeah, I was able to smell it.
totally
Yeah.
kidding.
So the point number 2 is the ironic discrepancy. People notice the flaws in others and have a hard time noticing the ones in themselves, while people can only change themselves and cannot change others.
I disagree with that.
Okay. There we go.
But it's not like the bad way of changing it. I think working together, you can both change. And yeah, they have to want to change, but I think you can make them
Well, absolutely.
change.
So you're
by
talking about.
meeting in a middle area.
So what you're saying like this.
Compromise.
You're saying like this. When someone wants to change, if they have someone helping them to change, it's that much more effective. It means you're arguing is that saying that when someone really wants to change and someone already has it in mind, the process of changing is either easier with someone else. I agree with that point. But to initiate change, right, they have to be the one who has to initiate the change. They have one who has to recognize that there needs to be a change and to bring it or into the forefront or to kickstart it. But once you're ready signed up for change, it's way easier to because it's hard. It's hard to diagnose yourself. It's hard to know where you're holding, what's your character. And it's much easier for someone else to pick that up. But the initial point number 2 is that you kind of really can't change someone else. If they want to change, then you can work together. That's way better. But if you're in a relationship that has gone south, God forbid, you have to recognize is that your job is to change yourself. And point number 3 is that the second you take the initiative, because what happens? Relationship goes south, and everyone expects the other person
To change
or to make the first gesture. It's kind of like the Israelis and the Palestinians. It's like everyone's like kind of waiting for the other person to give up. It's like negotiation. Like no one wants to be the one to
show his cards first.
to show. It's not to show his cards first, but to take the first step.
Sure.
I have a question.
And especially because they're antagonistic. They're antagonistic to each other. Why should I be the one to bend? Why should I be the one to? So people recognize that they have problems. People recognize that there's things that they used to do in the past that they don't do anymore, and that there's things that they used to overlook. And be able to be more malleable and be more flexible. But people, because they're antagonistic, they don't want to make the first jump. They want the other person to do it.
Well, they want to show proof that the other person has interest in reconciliation.
Well, I think typically both of them have interest. It's just the question is who's going to be the
Who's
big boy.
Who's going to be the winner and who's going to be the loser?
Right, you know what it's crazy. We're so nuts. As a people, we're just crazy.
You said a secondary, like, a relationship goes south, God forbid. So, so the relationship's bad because it's going south, but when should the relationship end not because of conflict?
Like I've said, relationships
it's not like
and
every relationship you are in, the first girl you
That's
date,
true.
you marry.
That's true. I agree with that. And that's absolutely true. The point is that we have to learn the skills necessary to be able to deal with relationship repair. That's the point. Now, not every relationship is meant to be. We've talked about that. Some relationships should not have happened, or shouldn't be started.
Are you
Should
saying
be
that the
continued.
conflict isn't what should end it, or is something under?
No, I don't think that a conflict based upon character should end it, because that won't even help. The next relationship would be the same thing. You see some people that have been unsuccessful in multiple relationships, and it's not because they just struck out, so to speak. They just never met someone, never met them. You just never met the right person. Never. That's not what it is. They met the right person.
Yeah.
He isn't the right person. So yes, some relationships should be stopped because it doesn't make sense, or because, and especially what I think this is more valuable once you're already invested in a relationship. There's always a point in time where there's the knowledge of both sides that this is serious, this is real, this is it develops a certain seriousness in a relationship, and then you kind of want to preserve it.
This is like tips for preserving something that's actually a real relationship, not just
Well, as we say, it's relationship troubleshooting. Right. Developing relationships is a separate topic, and how to develop relationships that are built to last. Right. But the point is that, in my opinion, out of the 50% of people that get divorced and the 80% of people that are miserable in their marriage, right? Because there's 30% who either stay for the kids or it's too expensive to get divorced, right? A lot of that could be avoided. That's my point. Some of it can't be avoided, right? A lot of it could be avoided if people knew these principles. That's the point. So we're going at the 40% or 50% of people that could have a very fulfilling relationship, but unfortunately they don't because the relationship goes sour. Okay, so I kind of think that you have to change yourself. That you cannot expect someone else to change. You have to be the one who takes the first step. And typically, if it's a serious relationship and it's you've had your very good times and you've had your bad times and you've worked through conflicts before together, and you guys are both in it for the long term. Typically, each party is looking for the other person, and then they're willing to reciprocate. It's much easier to reciprocate than it is to initiate, right? But the
How
truth
do you
is,
recognize those character flaws?
Huh?
Have to be pointed out by your partner, or every time you have a fight, it's like I'm doing something wrong.
so that's point number. That's point number.
You never think you are. So
Yeah.
I'm always wrong now.
No. So
So you can work on what you can change.
Well, how do
It's
you
not
recognize
easy.
what those things are?
If someone tells you.
I think it's about being like
Or the
being self-reflective.
That was good.
no.
It's being
I
like
don't know.
I'm not going to tell you.
introspective. You gotta like.
Well, only you can bring about the change. But if someone tells you what you need to change, you give it some real thought.
That
I don't know.
easy,
No,
I would
it's
argue-
really so much.
I don't know.
If you can reflect on your whatever conflict you're in.
Yeah.
Like, maybe
I don't know.
this isn't working. I need to try another way or something like this.
If
You have some idea, but there's another level,
My
like you
character
said,
right there.
where you don't.
Right.
Unfortunately, we're blind to our own character flaws.
Right, and I think like when you're in situations where somebody on the other side of the table is saying, "Oh, you were real lazy," and like that's you should be more patient, and they're the
get
ones
defensive.
and then you get defensive, and then it's like counterintuitive. So like I think you have to be self-reflective and realize what.
So you
Which you are, because you're blind to your own. You can be very blind
That's
to
what
you.
I'm talking about. Should be changed.
See, we have the statement of Rabbi Israel Salanter, who was one of the biggest Jewish personalities of the 19th century. And he spearheaded a movement called the Musar movement, which is the whole idea of character perfection and ethical refinement. And basically, he developed a whole scientific method of how to diagnose and address and treat all character flaws. And he said is that to actually change, to actually have self-transformation, to become a person who was lazy, to become a person who's not lazy anymore, or any character flaw. People have temper or, right, whatever it is. So, right, people are haughty. All the character flaws, to change that, it's easier to finish the entire Babylonian Talmud, which is a tremendous piece of scholarship for someone to do it, than it is to really fundamentally change a character, right? So yes, it's not so easy to do. The point is, it's not so easy to do.
I think it's almost impossible in some cases.
It's not almost impossible. It's
not
almost
possible if you don't recognize it.
That's what I mean more.
Steps.
Now, what he was referring to is total transformation. There's also ways to mask it. It's if someone has temper, so the best thing would be for them to go through a 90-day program to
Every time they find themselves becoming
Yes.
right. So that
they take they count to 10 or what again.
right. So that's a way to mask it. That's a way to mask it. But that would be very effective.
Sure.
Because they may still be angry people, but it's not expressed to the whole world. And it doesn't cause for there to be conflict.
I don't know that it's that.
If you don't let it out,
Huh?
I mean, you can't be down to 10. I don't know.
Or whatever. It's like
Well, I feel like oftentimes with anger, it's like you get in the situation, and then it's just like you say, with momentum, it kind of feeds off of each other.
Okay, so if you're
It's gotta
angry,
be more in tune with your emotions and what's happening when you're having an argument, and slow it down and kind of figure it out.
What he's talking about isn't necessarily stopping the impulse from happening, but it's not dismissing it either. It's dealing with it in a way that
confronting
or channeling it to someone else other than don't bring all your dirty laundry. Bring it home. Don't bring your dirty laundry home. Is that
don't air out your dirty laundry.
Don't air out your dirty laundry at home.
No, it's like don't air your dirty laundry. It's like whatever happens at home, don't like air it out to the world.
I say the opposite. Don't air out your dirty laundry. It's someone's anger, right? So they need to fill 100 units of anger every day, right? So let it out on your coworkers or your employees or the guy, right, who drive like a maniac. But your family is your life, right?
Mindfulness.
So
right. Take care of your issues.
Do you have other relationships other than the one?
Well, other relationships. I'm saying the point is that you have to figure out a way to address it. So if you could change your characteristic, great. If you can't, find a way to mask it.
I think
right?
the hardest thing is to recognize what your character flaws
What is
Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean necessarily when you say like mask it. I feel like the whole like calming yourself down. It isn't. I mean, for some people it might really be masking it, but I feel like if you really are working on it, you're slowly working towards like overcoming that and making being a full person a part of your character.
And that's where if you take a person who has like a really bad temper, like my thought would be if somebody like I'm a really angry person, I have a hot temper.
I mean, I can tell.
Now if you cut me in line at dinner, you cut me in line at dinner and I blow up and what are you doing? Like, whatever, right? I blow up over something seemingly okay. So that's day one. Day two, that happens and I count to 10 and I don't blow up. And that's masking it, and then in theory, like down the road, at some point, I'm potentially like,
So it's slowly getting less.
It's like improved. It's constantly improving.
So it's like you can't get it fully, but you can make it less climactic.
Right, if you're
And eventually, if you constantly take steps or take actions that are against that particular characteristic, it's going by
it's a
itself.
smaller piece of the.
You're going to mitigate the problem.
And it's like compared to like you and your girlfriend fighting before, it happens again. It's a little bit of a thing.
I remember there was this before I got married. So like I met this guy I was studying yeshiva in Jerusalem. So there was this guy who was yeshiva. Like there were like 3,000 or 4,000 married students. And there was this one guy who was like in charge of he wasn't in charge, he was like unofficially in charge of when guys had questions about married life, right? If they were getting into fights with their wife or whatever, they would go to him. He was like the one-stop shop for all people knew that if you
It's like an official position.
Not unofficial.
It's like some random guy.
It was a random guy, but he was very skilled at it.
Okay.
And he had lots of experience. So he was a kind of, but people asked him all kinds of questions, any kind of question you would imagine, right? So when I before I got married, I said, "Okay, come on, let's sit down for a half hour. Give me all the important things. When you get married, you want to make sure it works out, right? This is the person I'm going to share the rest of my life with. Tell me what are the key pointers." So what did he tell me? I wasn't sure if he was joking. He started telling me. So I was like, "The first thing you do is never, ever, ever hit your wife." Like, really? That's anticlimactic, right?
Never hit or hate. Hit.
Like, really? Right? And then he says, okay, and if you ever want to scream at your wife, first thing you do is you go to the windows and make sure you close all your windows. Because then the neighbors won't hear. And maybe it'll take you 10 seconds. It'll take you 10 seconds before you...
And then you won't want to
scream. And then maybe you won't want to scream as badly. Those were like his 2 things that he told me. I said other things, but those is what I remember. And to me, what he was saying is like, it seemed to me that like, okay, these things have happened before, I guess, but also that this would be a way that you have an anger problem or you want to let out some anger. Don't do it. It's bad for your relationship. This is what causes relationships to unravel. Bad character. So, are you really addressing your character by taking 10 seconds to go close the window? No, you're not really addressing your character flaw. You're not really facing up and trying to say, okay, how do we bring it down to the points and try where does the anger come from? And try to really get to the core of your anger issue. but it's not going to be manifest in such a way that will be detrimental to your relationship. Now, I think that the final point has to be is that if you really want to foolproof or troubleshoot a relationship, you have to recognize is that there has to be the element of self-transformation. You have to change your character, right? Especially if there's something that comes up again and again, because when you're living a life with someone else, in close proximity with someone else, these things are going to, they're always going to come to the surface. If you live by yourself, it's you and it's just you and yourself. It's no one else suffers from your misdeeds. But when you're living with someone else, every one of your flaws is going to be experienced by your partner,
And vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. So the only way to avoid it is self-transformation. So now, like you said, there's varying degrees of self-transformation. There's varying degrees. There's total transformation, but there's also ways to mask it. That's what I have. I actually have
I think that working on it is the general health relation. Whether you totally fix it or mask it, I think just showing that you're working on it will help the relationship.
And I'll tell you even a step further, Matthew. Just recognition of the fact that there's a problem and that's causing the relationship.
It's like AA, 12 steps.
Right, well, 12 steps. Well, I have a 4-step program here.
Sure.
But 12 steps, that's what it is. The first step is recognition. Means even if it's not in the forefront of your mind, but you know it's your problem and that's what's causing the breakdown of the relationship, right? That's already an element of working on your stubbornness. Because it's on the forefront of your mind. And then you say, okay, fine, I'm going to try to do one thing every day, which is not a stubborn thing. Right? I'm going to try to, once a day, do something that change my opinion of something. Like, be not unstubborn. I don't know, is there a word for unstubborn? De-stubbornify?
Oh, that's a new idea.
No, but not stubborn. Okay. So I'm going to do a not stubborn thing every day, and that's even better. But just recognition of that fact, that alone is like just...
And is it recognition that you have yourself, or is it that your partner? I'm being stubborn. Or is it
like you said, the second you bring it out to the forefront, like it'll be easier for you to work on it. Well, then there's always a caveat of them saying, "Oh, you're being stubborn," and just rubbing it into you, and that's that would be the trade-off. But
Let me tell you.
now we have, just to finish off, we have a 4-step program, which we call tshuva repentance. This is the time now before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The themes of the high holidays are that of like self-assessment and where you're holding in life, what are you trying to accomplish in life, what's your relationship. It's like evaluation of where you're holding. What are my priorities? And the Talmud brings tshuva, the idea of repentance, and it gives you a 4-step program. This is what it says. If someone wants to repent, they have to do 4 things. So what are these 4 things? Thing number 1, you have to regret what you did. The Talmud might be talking about someone did a sin, so they have to repent for it. But this is an easily transferable 4 steps, which should be used towards changing character. So regret, which means you recognize you did something, or recognize you are something. Right? And you feel bad about it. The next thing is cessation of activities that contribute towards that. So, oh gosh, I recognize I'm a stubborn person. I'm going to stop doing stubborn things. Right? I'm going to stop. Try to make a catalog of things that are stubborn that you do. Try to stop doing that. And the next thing is adoption of practices which are contrary to that. Which is like, okay, fine. I'm going to start doing X, Y, and Z, which are non-stubborn activities. And the last thing is vidu. What does vidu mean? Vidu means confession. What's the idea of confession? If someone says, okay, I'm leaving this way of life, I regret it. I'm going to start living this way of life. Right? This is a better thing, right? Or I'm going to leave this characteristic. I regret it. It's bad for me. It's bad for my relationship, bad for my life, bad for my health. I'm going to start doing this. What's the idea of confession? What does that add? So I think what it is, it's like a concretization of a decision. You're making a decision to do X, right? You're making a decision to stop doing X and start doing Y, right? So you take the steps necessary, but then you post it on Facebook, right? Okay, I'm unplugging for 2 weeks. Every time I open Facebook, someone's unplugging, and right, some people are like, okay, 25 pounds down, 25 to go. Right? How many times have we seen that? Every single day. What are they doing? What they're doing is they're putting some skin in the game. Right? They're announcing it to the world. They're doing an action that makes this decision, makes it tangible, makes it real, brings it out into the world. And it has tremendous benefit towards actually hope, that this plan that people set into action will actually be implemented. Right? The second you make a statement, okay, I've decided X, right? And you announce it, or you change your status. I like to say in Facebook, but that is like the cementing of a decision.
I thought one of the steps was asking for forgiveness.
Well, that's for interpersonal. Interpersonal. But that obviously interpersonal is like that as well. That if you slight someone or if you steal from someone, right, you can only have full repentance if that person forgives you.
Right, but if they don't forgive you, you still did enough to. So,
what the Talmud says, if someone doesn't forgive you, then what you do is you ask them 3 times, and you ask them sincerely and say, "Listen, I made a mistake, and I apologize." And if they don't forgive you after 3 times, then you don't have to ask anymore. But they should forgive you. If they see that you're sincere and you really ask them sincerely and you really regret what you did to them, then they should forgive you. And so much so that it says that if someone is quick to forgive others for his misdeeds, then the Almighty will be quick to forgive that particular person for his own. We all have things. We all have skeletons in the closets. We all have things that we did that we regret. We all have mistakes that we made, and we want other people to be able to overlook, other people on the Almighty to be able to overlook our misdeeds. So if we are able to overlook others' misdeeds towards us, then we'll be treated in similar fashion. But I want to just give a quick recap of what I thought is a very important skill to learn, and this is how I would approach it. Like I said, we're always looking for root causes of breakdown in relationship, and we said that relationship crises are a result of character, not circumstance. Circumstance could bring something into the forefront. It could ignite a character flaw that that wasn't present. That wasn't present in the forefront in the previous scenario, but it was still lingering. It was still, underneath the surface. You could only change yourself, but if you change yourself, you can expect reciprocation. That's all. Because like we said, people are people are invested in a relationship. Everyone wants it to really work, but people are fearful to take the first step. You take the first step, you'll expect reciprocation, and the importance of that, of momentum and trends in relationship. The way they work is with trends. Right? When it's good, they each give up a little bit of their own identity. They each try to help the unit become more of a unit, and they each do things that are beneficial for the relationship. And when it's bad, everyone's thinking of ways to make the other one's life miserable, and people antagonistic, and it compounds. It gets worse and worse. The only way to really truly change or to make your relationship foolproof is to self-transformation. I gave one way to do it, the 4-step program. I think there's other ways to do it. We could say this is really a separate topic. How do you change yourself? There's multiple levels of how you change yourself. There's self-masking. Right? You could just cover up. Which is important. And even we said, even just recognition of the fact that there's a flaw is in itself a step towards rectifying it.
Well, it's like you said, when you decide with somebody to be serious, you should want to work on your character flaws. And begin a relationship, if it's not.
Well, that's kind of the price of admission.
You don't have the will to do it. So.
That's kind of the price of admission. Anytime there's a relationship, I've said this before, so I don't want to get too deep into it. Every time there's a relationship, you're always giving up something, right? Just 2 becoming 1. Or it's a change in identity. So you're always going to have to give up something. That's the price of admission. But like we said, to maintain it, and with all the new things that people encounter in their lives, there will have to be more sacrifices, because otherwise a relationship will become untenable because of those characters. Like I said, and I gave one because it's particularly apropos, the idea of repentance. the 4 steps of repentance. I said there's the 12 steps is also a tremendous way where people can actually face up to their problem and fix them. But there are other ways. Like we said, there's more complex and sophisticated ways and less complex ways to do it. There's cover up, and like I said, I just feel like I said like I said. I feel like I said like I said like 8 times in the past minute. And there's the 3 relationships that you encounter. I really think that even we don't think of the idea of man with oneself as a relationship because we're so externally, outwardly focused. But I think that even in this relationship, these principles would apply. The people have to get to know your real self. It's like you have to reformat the way you think about life and how you think about yourself, and that's all. The obstacles in the way are once again your character flaws.
Is it possible, or do any of those 3 relationships take precedence over the other in terms of importance?
Everyone has to develop their own system of importances. And we say during the prayer of Shabbat morning, we say this world is. There's no one who has this value like you, the Almighty, in this world. And my grandfather, blessed memory, he would say that this world we have the ability to prioritize. Everyone can choose what's more important, what's the most important thing in their lives.
Times of different conflicts are higher priority.
Yeah, but the question is, what ultimately you have to. The decisions that we make are based on the priorities that we have. So, what we say is that the most important thing in the world is God. He has to be the ultimate priority. Because otherwise, if something else has a higher priority than God, that's what we call idolatry. That's the definition of idolatry. Right? Something supersedes God. Something supersedes God. So, but everyone. This is the in this world we are each granted with the opportunity to make the list of priorities, and everyone has the ability to prioritize for themselves. And that's an ability that humans have. It's a uniquely human function.
The priorities now.
Huh?
Man and God.
Well, that's what the Torah would advocate, but doesn't mean that people have to follow that. People are able to make decisions based upon free choice, right? Right.
I think they're all interconnected, anyways.
Yeah, it's absolutely, but absolutely, but like I said, on a deep level, when we talk about idolatry, no one's really bowing down to
golden calf.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. But it still exists. The idea of what are your priorities in life? What's the most important thing? What's non-negotiable in your life? If God is a priority, great. If there's something else which is a higher priority than that, well, how could it be something that's a higher priority than God? That's the definition of idolatry. But like I said, ultimately this is in the hands of every person to make that decision. And that's all I've got. Hope everyone enjoyed.
That's great.
It's good? Desmond, you were so quiet the whole time.